I am Sarah, 37 years old, and mother to my incredible 13-year-old daughter, Lily. 3 years ago, after my divorce from Michael, we moved in with my parents while I tried to rebuild our lives. At the time, it seemed like a blessing. As a freelance graphic designer, I needed stability and support, and my family offered both. My relationship with them had always been complex, but I thought we could make it work. Then my brother Daniel and his wife Jessica had their baby girl, and suddenly my daughter became invisible. I never imagined my own parents would abandon us so completely. If you're enjoying this story, drop a comment about where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button to join our storytelling family for more real life drama. When Michael and I ended our 16-year marriage, I was shattered, not just emotionally, but financially. He had been the primary breadwinner as a successful architect, while I worked part time to accommodate raising Lily. The divorce left me with shared custody, minimal alimony, and the sudden need to support myself and my daughter independently. My parents, Margaret and Robert, offered their home as a temporary solution. Just until you get back on your feet, my father had said with an encouraging pat on my shoulder. I was grateful despite our complicated history. Growing up, I had always been the responsible one, following rules and meeting expectations, while my younger brother Daniel was the golden child who could do no wrong. I had spent 10 years building my graphic design business, working with clients ranging from small startups to established corporations. My path wasn't flashy, but it was steady. Daniel, on the other hand, had dropped out of college twice, started a digital marketing agency with my parents' financial backing, and was now making six figures at 29. The pattern of favoritism was so deeply ingrained that I hardly noticed it anymore. Lily was a wonderful kid with her own distinct personality. She was artistic like me, always sketching or painting, but also had a sharp intellect that sometimes made her seem older than her years. She was doing well in school despite the upheaval of the divorce and move, adapting with the resilience that children somehow possess. Our initial arrangement with my parents seemed positive. They converted their home office into a bedroom for Lily, and I took the guest room. I contributed to groceries, did most of the cooking, and made sure Lily was respectful of her grandparents' space and routines. As a freelancer, my schedule was flexible, which helped with client meetings and project deadlines, but it also meant irregular income that required careful budgeting. The plan was to save enough for a security deposit and first month's rent on our own place within a year. I was careful with money, taking on extra projects when possible and putting aside as much as I could. The rental market in our area was competitive and expensive, but I was determined to give my daughter stability again. Then Daniel and Jessica had their baby, little Emma, and everything changed. My parents had always favored Daniel, but their reaction to his baby was something else entirely. They transformed the formal dining room into a nursery, despite the fact that Daniel and Jessica had their own three-bedroom house across town. They bought expensive baby equipment that would only be used during visits. My mother started canceling plans to help with Lily if Daniel needed anything at all. Your brother needs more support right now, she would say. New parenting is overwhelming. The irony that I had been a single parent for 3 years somehow escaped her. At first, I tried to be understanding. New babies are exciting, and this was their first granddaughter in over a decade. Lily had been their only grandchild for 13 years, so perhaps they were just enjoying the novelty. I encouraged Lily to be patient and kind, explaining that little Emma needed extra attention because she was so small. The favoritism was subtle at first. Christmas gifts that were noticeably more expensive for Emma than for Lily. Comments about how Emma looked just like Jessica did as a baby, while Lily had always been said to favor her father's side. Small things, but they accumulated. I tried to compensate by creating special time just for us. We would go to art museums on my days off or have movie nights in my bedroom. I started a savings chart on my bathroom wall where Lily could see our progress toward getting our own place. Just a few more months, I would promise her. We'll have our own home by Christmas. But as spring turned to summer, the tension in the house grew. My parents became increasingly critical of my parenting decisions, from what I fed Lily to her bedtime to how much screen time she was allowed. Meanwhile, Daniel and Jessica could do no wrong with Emma, even when they would show up hours late for family dinner or cancel plans at the last minute. I was walking a tightrope, trying to shield my daughter from the reality that her grandparents were treating her differently while also trying to maintain a peaceful household. I needed my parents' help. After all, I couldn't afford full-time childcare on top of saving for our move. By the end of summer, my savings account was growing steadily. I had calculated that by November, I would have enough for a modest two-bedroom apartment. Just 3 more months of patience, I told myself. 3 more months of biting my tongue and reminding Lily that we were guests in her grandparents' home. 3 more months of watching my parents dote on Emma while barely acknowledging Lily's achievements. I had no idea how much worse things would get before those 3 months were up. The situation escalated dramatically in September when Daniel called a family meeting. He and Jessica sat at my parents' kitchen table with baby Emma, dressed in an outfit that probably cost more than my entire weekly grocery budget. "We've got some exciting news," Daniel announced, looking at our parents rather than at me. "We're finally doing that major renovation on our house, the one we've been talking about for ages." My mother clasped her hands together. "That's wonderful, sweetie. The thing is," Jessica continued, bouncing Emma on her knee, "we'll need somewhere to stay during the construction. It should only be about 6 to 8 weeks." Before I could even process what was happening, my father was nodding enthusiastically. "You'll stay here, of course. We have plenty of room." I cleared my throat. "Actually, we're a bit tight on space already with the four of us." I gestured to myself, Lily, and my parents. My mother shot me a look. "Family helps family, Sarah. It's only temporary." And just like that, the decision was made. No one asked how I felt about it. No one considered what this would mean for Lily. No one acknowledged that I had been told the same thing about our temporary stay, which was now approaching the 3-year mark. Daniel and Jessica moved in the following weekend. My father helped them set up a portable crib in their room for Emma, though he had never once offered to help assemble Lily's bed when we moved in. My mother cleared out an entire closet for Jessica's clothes, while my things had remained in suitcases for months before I eventually bought a small dresser for myself. The changes were immediate and jarring. Suddenly, Lily was told to keep her voice down throughout the day because Emma was napping. Her art supplies, which had been allowed in the living room corner, were now considered clutter and repeatedly put away in boxes. The television, which she had been allowed to watch for an hour after school, was now perpetually tuned to shows Jessica wanted to watch. When I came home from a long day of client meetings one evening, I found Lily sitting on the back porch alone, looking upset. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked, sitting beside her. "Grandma said I was being too loud with my art project in the living room," she sniffled. But Emma wasn't even sleeping. She was in the kitchen with Aunt Jessica. She just didn't want to hear me working. That same week, Lily came home from school excited about an art contest she had entered. Her piece had been selected for the regional competition. When she tried to show my mother, she waved her away. "Not now, Lily. I'm helping Jessica pick out new furniture for their house." I watched my daughter's face fall, and something inside me hardened. That night, after Lily was asleep, I tried to have a conversation with my parents. "I understand that Daniel and his family need help right now," I began carefully, "but I'm concerned about how Lily is being treated. She feels like she's not important anymore." My father frowned. "She's being oversensitive. Kids need to learn that babies require more attention." "Emma isn't even here most of the day," I pointed out. "Daniel takes her to daycare before work, and Jessica picks her up on her way home. Lily isn't asking for attention during those hours." My mother sighed dramatically. "You always were jealous of your brother, Sarah. I thought you would have outgrown that by now." I was stunned into silence. Was that really how they saw me? As a jealous sibling rather than a concerned mother? The situation continued to worsen. Jessica began rearranging items in the kitchen without asking, complaining about the healthy snacks I bought for Lily and leaving her laundry in the machine for days. Daniel acted as if he owned the house, inviting friends over for game nights without checking if anyone else had plans to use the living room. One evening, I overheard Daniel and my father discussing financial matters. "We might need to extend the renovation timeline," Daniel was saying. "The contractor found some issues with the plumbing." "Stay as long as you need," my father replied. This is your home too. I thought about how I had never been told that, despite contributing to household expenses and doing most of the cooking and cleaning. Instead, I was regularly reminded that their help was temporary and conditional. The breaking point came during a Sunday dinner in early October. My mother had prepared all of Daniel's favorite foods, none of which Lily particularly enjoyed. When Lily politely asked if there was anything else she could eat, my mother told her she was being ungrateful. When I was growing up, we ate what was put in front of us, she said sternly. Later in the meal, Emma threw her entire bowl of food on the floor, and everyone laughed indulgently. She's just exploring textures, Jessica explained, making no move to clean up the mess. The double standard was so blatant that even my usually diplomatic daughter noticed. How come Emma can throw food, but I can't ask for a sandwich? She whispered to me. I had no good answer for her. That week, I found that someone had removed Lily's artwork from the refrigerator to make room for a printout of Emma's daycare schedule and several photos of her. When I asked about it, Jessica said she needed the information front and center and didn't think anyone would mind if she rearranged a few things. Lily stopped wanting to spend time in the common areas of the house. She retreated to her small bedroom where she at least had some control over her environment. I started taking her to the public library after school when I wasn't working, just to give her space where she wasn't constantly shushed or criticized. A colleague noticed my stress during a particularly difficult project review. Everything okay at home, Sarah? Rachel asked as we finished up our meeting. I found myself pouring out the whole situation. Rachel listened sympathetically before saying something that stuck with me. It sounds like your parents have created a household where your brother's family is treated as guests of honor, while you and your daughter are treated as inconvenient roommates, she observed. That's not a healthy environment for either of you. She was right. And hearing it said aloud made me realize how normalized the dysfunctional dynamic had become. That evening, instead of going straight home after my client meeting, I drove around the neighborhood and called a realtor friend of mine. I need to get my daughter out of this situation, I told her, sooner rather than later. By mid October, the situation at home had deteriorated beyond what I thought possible. Daniel and Jessica had fully taken over the house with my parents' enthusiastic support. Their renovation, originally scheduled for 6 to 8 weeks, had now been extended indefinitely due to complications that Daniel was vague about whenever I asked. I came home one day to find that my parents had purchased a special high chair for Emma, one that cost nearly $400 according to the box I found in the recycling. This while they had complained about the cost of Lily's art supplies the previous week, which I had paid for entirely myself. We want Emma to be comfortable when she eats here, my mother explained when I questioned the expense. Lily needs art supplies for her school projects, I responded, unable to keep the edge from my voice. My mother looked at me as if I was being unreasonable. Your father and I are on a fixed income, Sarah. We can't be expected to cover everything for your child. The fact that I paid for all of Lily's expenses, plus contributed to the household bills, apparently didn't register with her. Neither did the fact that Daniel and Jessica, both high earners, contributed nothing toward household expenses during their stay. The next incident occurred when Lily was working on a painting for her art class. She had been working quietly in the living room for less than 20 minutes when Jessica stormed in. Can you not do that right now? Emma is trying to nap, and I have an important conference call in 10 minutes. Lily apologized and put her supplies away, but later told me tearfully that she had been working on a project that was due the next day. She now wouldn't have time to finish it properly. I tried to speak with Jessica about it, suggesting that we could work out a schedule that accommodated everyone's needs. My work calls and Emma's sleep schedule have to take priority, she responded dismissively. Lily can do her little art projects anytime. I bit my tongue to avoid saying something I would regret. Lily's little art projects were her passion, and her teacher had noted she had real talent. But in this household, anything my daughter did was considered less important than the most trivial needs of Daniel's family. Lily was struggling too. Her teacher emailed me concerned about her withdrawal in class and declining participation. My outgoing, enthusiastic daughter had become quiet and anxious. When I asked her about it, She admitted she was having trouble concentrating because she was worried about doing anything wrong at home. Grandma and Grandpa get upset at me for everything, she explained, but they never get upset at Emma or Uncle Daniel or Aunt Jessica. I took on extra projects, partly to earn more money for our escape and partly to avoid the tension at home. My parents interpreted this as me shirking family responsibilities, while Daniel and Jessica seemed glad to have me out of the way. The situation came to a head during a family dinner in late October. My parents had invited several extended family members over, including my Aunt Carol, who had always been kind to me and Lily. During the meal, my mother launched into an extended monologue about how advanced Emma was, how at just 8 months, she was clearly gifted. She's already trying to pull herself up, she boasted. Daniel was an early walker, too. Some children just have that natural intelligence. She then turned to Lily and added, "It's too bad you didn't get that from your father's side. Michael was always so cerebral, wasn't he?" I saw Lily's face crumple before she carefully composed herself. The implication was clear. Any positive traits my daughter possessed came from her father or were despite my influence, while Emma's gifts were clearly inherited from the superior genetic line of my brother. Aunt Carol caught my eye across the table, her expression concerned. After dinner, she pulled me aside. "How long has it been like this?" she asked quietly. "It's always been this way to some degree," I admitted. "But it's gotten much worse since Daniel's family moved in." "This isn't healthy for your daughter, Sarah," she said, echoing what Rachel from work had told me. "She deserves better than to be treated as a second-class member of her own family." I nodded, tears threatening. "I'm working on it," I assured her. "I have a plan." And I did. In the weeks since my conversation with Rachel, I had been meeting with my realtor friend during lunch breaks. We had looked at several rental properties, and I had found a small two-bedroom townhouse just 15 minutes from my main client and in the same school district as Lily currently attended. The rent was at the upper limit of what I could afford, but I had been approved based on my steady client base and excellent credit score. I had signed a lease the previous week, but told no one, not even Lily. I didn't want to get her hopes up until everything was finalized. The house would be available for move-in on November 1st, just a week away. I had been secretly ordering essential furniture to be delivered on that date and had set up utilities in my name. Aunt Carol squeezed my hand. "Let me know if you need anything," she said. "I've been concerned about this situation for some time." Her support meant more than she knew. I had begun to question my own perceptions, wondering if I was being oversensitive or jealous, as my parents suggested. Having outside confirmation that the situation was as bad as I thought gave me the final push of confidence I needed. The next morning, I overheard Daniel and my father discussing more permanent arrangements. "The contractor says it could be another 3 months," Daniel was saying. "And honestly, with the baby, it might make more sense to just stay through the holidays." "You know you're always welcome," my father replied warmly. "This is your home." I wondered if either of them remembered that I had been told my stay was temporary, that I was expected to find my own place as quickly as possible. The double standard was so glaring it would have been laughable if it wasn't breaking my daughter's heart. That evening, I took Lily out for ice cream after dinner, something we rarely did on weeknights. I wanted some time alone with her, away from the tense atmosphere of the house. "I need you to know something important," I told her as she enjoyed her sundae. "No matter what Grandma and Grandpa say or do, you're amazing and valuable. The way they're treating you isn't because of anything you've done wrong." Lily, always perceptive, studied my face. "Are we going to move out soon?" I was surprised by her insight. "What makes you ask that?" "You've been working more projects," she said. "And you seem different lately, less sad and more determined." Out of the mouths of babes. My daughter had seen the change in me before I had fully acknowledged it myself. "Just keep being your wonderful self for a little bit longer," I told her, not quite ready to reveal my plan. "Can you do that for me?" She nodded, and I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes that had been missing for too long. When we returned home, Jessica was complaining loudly about Lily's art supplies being in the dining room, despite the fact that Emma's toys, stroller, and various baby equipment were scattered throughout the common areas of the house. "Children need to learn to be more organized," she lectured me as if she was the parenting expert and I was a novice. I smiled tightly and helped Lily move her belongings, reminding myself that we only had to endure this for a few more days. I had no idea that the situation was about to explode in a way that would force my hand even sooner than I had planned. The following Tuesday, I was meeting with a major potential client, a presentation that could significantly boost my income. It was scheduled for the entire afternoon, representing months of preparation and my biggest opportunity yet. I had arranged everything carefully, knowing Lily would be home from school before I returned. I barely had time to check my phone during a break in the presentation, but when I did, I saw several missed texts from Lily. Mom, something weird is happening. Grandpa and Uncle Daniel are moving my stuff. Grandma says I have to move to the basement. This isn't fair. Mom, please come home. They put all my things downstairs. I hate it here. The basement is cold and there are bugs. My heart pounded as I quickly called home. No answer. I tried Lily's phone. No answer. Finally, I texted her back. I'll be home as soon as I can. Stay calm. I love you. I excused myself from the presentation, explaining the family emergency. My potential client was understanding, but I knew I was likely walking away from the biggest contract opportunity I'd had in years. Even so, nothing was more important than my daughter. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Had my parents really moved my child to the basement? The unfinished, poorly ventilated basement that had occasional moisture issues? When I pulled into the driveway, I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself before going inside. I needed to assess the situation clearly before reacting. The scene that greeted me inside the house confirmed my worst fears. Lily sat huddled in the living room corner, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. My mother was in the kitchen with Jessica, both drinking tea as if nothing unusual had happened. Daniel and my father were nowhere to be seen. What's going on? I asked, going straight to my daughter. Lily jumped up and threw her arms around me. They moved all my stuff to the basement without asking. They said I don't deserve a real room upstairs anymore. I hugged her tightly, my anger building, but keeping my voice calm for her sake. Let me talk to Grandma and see what's happening. In the kitchen, my mother barely looked up when I entered. You're home early, she observed. Why are my daughter's belongings in the basement? I asked directly. Jessica sipped her tea. We needed to make some adjustments to the living arrangements. Daniel and I need a proper nursery for Emma, plus space for my home office now that my company has gone fully remote. So you decided to move Lily to the unfinished basement without discussing it with me first? My voice was deadly quiet. My mother finally met my eyes. It was the logical solution. Lily is older and can adapt more easily than a baby. Besides, Emma deserves the best room. She's here all day while your daughter is at school. The casual cruelty of her statement took my breath away. My daughter deserves a safe, comfortable space just as much as Emma does. Don't be so dramatic, Sarah, my mother dismissed. The basement is perfectly fine. We put her bed down there and everything. The basement has moisture problems, gets freezing cold at night, and the ceiling is unfinished, I pointed out. Not to mention, there's only one small window that doesn't even open properly. She'll manage, my mother said with finality. Family means making sacrifices. Apparently, in her mind, only my daughter should sacrifice, never Daniel's. At that moment, my father and brother came in through the back door. Oh, good, you're home, my father said when he saw me. We've made some changes that we need to discuss. Yes, I can see that, I replied, fighting to keep my tone level. You moved my daughter's belongings to the basement without my permission. Daniel shrugged. We need the space upstairs. Emma is getting more active and needs room to develop properly. Plus, Jessica needs a quiet space for her video calls. And my daughter needs a safe, appropriate bedroom, I countered. The basement is fine, my father said dismissively. I put in some extra lighting and laid down some carpet remnants. She should be grateful she has a place to stay at all. I stared at him, truly seeing him for the first time. This man who had raised me, who I had spent years trying to please, had just revealed exactly how little he valued me and my child. Lily has mild asthma, I reminded them. The basement is damp and has visible mold. It could trigger a serious episode. You're overreacting as usual, Daniel said with an eye roll. Kids are resilient. Jessica and I grew up in much worse conditions, didn't we, honey? Jessica nodded in agreement, though I happened to know she had grown up in a four-bedroom house in an affluent suburb. I looked around at the four adults who had made this decision. None of them showed a hint of remorse or understanding. To them, this was perfectly reasonable. The golden child's family deserved the best, while my daughter deserved whatever scraps were left over. I walked back to the living room where Lily waited anxiously. She looked up at me with such trust, such hope that I would fix this situation. In that moment, something crystallized within me, a calm certainty about what needed to happen next. I smiled at her, a genuine smile despite the circumstances, and said three words that would change everything. Pack your bags. She looked confused, but I just nodded encouragingly. Trust me, I said. Pack everything important to you. We'll get the rest later. My father had followed me into the living room and overheard. Oh, for heaven's sake, Sarah. Stop being so dramatic. No one is asking you to leave. I turned to him, still smiling. No, Dad. You just made it abundantly clear where my daughter and I stand in this family, and we deserve better. What are you talking about? My father sputtered as Lily looked between us with wide eyes. Go on, sweetheart, I said gently to Lily. Go pack your backpack with your most important things. We'll come back for the rest tomorrow. As she hurried upstairs, my mother entered the living room. What nonsense is this now? You can't just leave because things didn't go your way. Daniel and Jessica followed, Emma perched on Daniel's hip. The gang was all here for the showdown, it seemed. This isn't about things not going my way, I explained calmly. This is about basic respect and consideration, which has been sorely lacking in this household. We've given you a roof over your head for 3 years, my father exclaimed. How dare you talk about lack of consideration? Yes, you have, I acknowledged. And I've been grateful. I've also contributed financially, done most of the cooking and cleaning, and made sure Lily respected your rules and space. But today you crossed a line. Jessica scoffed. It's just a bedroom rearrangement. You're being ridiculously oversensitive. I turned to her. Is that what you would call it if someone moved your child to an unsuitable space without consulting you first? She had no answer for that. The basement is perfectly adequate, my mother insisted. We raised you and Daniel without all these special accommodations kids seem to need nowadays. The basement has mold, I repeated. Lily has asthma. It's also cold, damp, and has inadequate ventilation. It's not a suitable bedroom by any safety standard. My father waved his hand dismissively. Those standards are just modern overprotectiveness. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Safety concerns were now overprotectiveness when they inconvenienced him. But I suspected he would feel differently if he was the one being relegated to substandard accommodations. Where exactly do you think you're going to go? Daniel asked with a smirk. It's not like you've been saving much with your freelance income. And there it was, the fundamental misunderstanding they all shared. They saw me as financially dependent and irresponsible, despite all evidence to the contrary. They truly believed I had no options, no agency, no ability to stand on my own. That's where you're wrong, I said quietly. I've been saving since the day I moved in here. I've been working extra projects and building my client base. And 3 weeks ago, I signed a lease on a townhouse not far from here. The stunned silence was deeply satisfying. My mother recovered first. You were planning to leave without telling us? She asked, voice trembling with manufactured hurt. I was planning to give you proper notice next week, I clarified. The house isn't available until November 1st, but today's events have accelerated my timeline. You can't be serious, Daniel said. Where are you going to stay until then? That's no longer any of your concern, I replied. In truth, I had already spoken with Rachel from work, who had offered her guest room for a few days if needed. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By sneaking around behind our backs and then storming out over a minor disagreement. Minor disagreement? I repeated incredulously. You moved my daughter's belongings to an unsafe space without my knowledge or consent. You told her to her face that she doesn't deserve the same comfort and consideration as her cousin. That's not minor, Dad. That's a fundamental statement about how you value her and me. Lily came back downstairs with her backpack and a small suitcase, her art supplies carefully packed in a separate bag. She was clutching her favorite sketchbook and the stuffed cat she'd had since she was 3. "I'm ready, Mom," she said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in weeks. "This is ridiculous," my mother declared. "You can't seriously be leaving right now." "We are," I confirmed. "We'll come back tomorrow to get the rest of our things when everyone has had a chance to calm down. If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back with open arms," my father threatened. I looked at him sadly. "I stopped expecting that a long time ago, Dad." Daniel stepped forward, suddenly realizing this was actually happening. "Come on, sis. Let's talk about this rationally. There's no need to make a scene in front of Lily. My daughter has already been shown exactly where she stands in this family's hierarchy," I responded. "There's nothing more to discuss tonight." I helped Lily put her bags in the car while my family watched from the porch, expressions ranging from anger to disbelief. They had been so certain of their power over me, so confident in my dependence, that they couldn't process the reality of my departure. As I started the car, my mother rushed over to my window. "Sarah, please. You're overreacting. Come back inside and we'll figure something out." "We'll talk tomorrow," I said firmly, "when I come to get our things." "But where will you go?" she asked, genuine concern finally breaking through her indignation. "Somewhere where my daughter is valued," I answered simply and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see Lily looking back at the house that had been our home for 3 years. Not with sadness, I realized, but with relief. "Are we really moving to our own house?" she asked cautiously. "Almost," I told her. "We have a house waiting for us, but we can't move in until next week. Tonight, we're going to stay with my friend Rachel from work." "Is it because of what Grandpa and Grandma did?" she asked. I chose my words carefully. "It's because we deserve to live somewhere where everyone is treated with respect and kindness." I've been planning for us to move out for a while now. But yes, what happened today made me realize we needed to leave sooner. "I didn't like how they talked about us," Lily said quietly. "Like we weren't important." My heart broke a little at her words. "You are incredibly important," I assured her. "And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to have you in their life." When we arrived at Rachel's house, she welcomed us warmly, having already prepared her guest room with an air mattress for Lily alongside the queen bed I would use. She had even bought art supplies and rented a movie for us to watch together. As Lily settled in, carefully unpacking her art supplies with subdued enthusiasm, Rachel pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "It takes courage to set boundaries with family." "I just wish I had done it sooner," I admitted, "before they hurt my daughter like this." "You're doing it now," she pointed out. "And that's what matters." That night, as Lily slept beside me in the unfamiliar room, I felt a strange mixture of emotions: sadness for what should have been, anger at how we had been treated, anxiety about the future. But underneath it all, a powerful sense of peace. For the first time in years, I had stood up for myself and my daughter without wavering or second guessing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: retrieving our belongings, weathering the inevitable emotional manipulation, finalizing arrangements for our new home. But tonight, watching my daughter sleep peacefully, I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right decision. We were finally breaking free. The next morning, I called my biggest clients to reschedule the presentations I would miss while getting settled. To my surprise, most were understanding and supportive. Rachel offered to let Lily stay with her while I went back to my parents' house to gather our belongings, but I declined. "She needs to see this through," I explained. "It's important for her to know we're doing this together." We arrived at my parents' house at 10 a.m. when I knew everyone would be home. My father answered the door with a scowl that softened slightly when he saw Lily. "Come to apologize for your tantrum?" he asked me. "No," I replied evenly. "We've come to get our things." His face hardened again. "Your mother has been upset all night because of your dramatic exit." "I'm sorry she's upset," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want to hurt my parents. I just needed to protect my daughter. "But we're still moving out." He stepped aside reluctantly to let us in. My mother was sitting in the living room, eyes red-rimmed from crying or lack of sleep. Daniel and Jessica were conspicuously absent. "Where are Daniel and Jessica?" I asked. "They took Emma to the park," my mother replied. "They thought it would be less stressful if they weren't here while you got your things." At least they had shown that much consideration. "Lily, go pack up your room," I instructed. "Remember what we talked about in the car. Just pack what you need and love. We can replace the rest." As she headed upstairs, my mother turned to me. "I can't believe you're doing this to us." "I'm not doing anything to you," I corrected her. "I'm doing something for my daughter and myself." "We've given you everything," she insisted. "A place to stay when you had nowhere to go, help with childcare, emotional support during your divorce. And I've been grateful," I acknowledged. "But that doesn't mean my daughter should be treated as less valuable than Emma." "We never said that," she protested. "You didn't have to say it. Your actions made it perfectly clear." My father joined us, pacing the room. My father joined us, pacing the room restlessly. "This is all about jealousy," he declared. "You've always resented Daniel's success, and now you're taking it out on us." I felt the familiar sting of that accusation, but this time it didn't land the way it used to. "This has nothing to do with Daniel's success," I said calmly. "This is about my daughter being treated fairly in what was supposed to be her temporary home, too." "She's being treated like family," my mother insisted. "No," I corrected her. "She's being treated like an inconvenience. There's a difference." Lily came downstairs with 2 boxes of her belongings. She had clearly been listening to the conversation because her expression was guarded. "I got everything important," she told me quietly. "Can we go now?" Before I could answer, my mother stood up and walked over to Lily. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might finally see what her favoritism had done. Instead, she said, "I hope you know this isn't what I wanted, sweetheart. Your mother is making things very difficult for everyone." I stepped between them immediately. "Don't put this on my daughter," I said firmly. "This is an adult decision based on adult behavior. She has a right to know that families work through problems," my mother replied. "They don't just run away when things get complicated." "You're right," I agreed. "Families do work through problems. But that requires all parties to acknowledge there is a problem and be willing to change." Yesterday made it clear that won't happen here. My father threw his hands up in exasperation. "So you're just going to walk away from your family over bedroom arrangements?" "I'm walking away from a situation where my daughter's well-being is considered less important than everyone else's convenience," I clarified. I helped Lily load her boxes into the car while my parents watched from the doorway. As we prepared to leave, my mother called out one last time. "When you realize you've made a mistake, we'll still be here," she said, but there was steel in her voice. "Though things might not be the same." I recognized the threat for what it was, a final attempt to maintain control through fear of abandonment. It might have worked 3 years ago when I was newly divorced and terrified of being alone. But I wasn't that person anymore. "I understand," I replied simply, "and mend it. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. And maybe that was okay." Our townhouse was everything the rental photos had promised and more. 2 bedrooms, each with large windows and plenty of natural light. A small but functional kitchen that opened to a living area where Lily could spread out her art projects without being told to clean up for someone else's convenience. A tiny backyard where we could plant flowers come spring. Most importantly, it felt like ours from the moment we walked in. "Which room do you want?" I asked Lily as we explored our new home. She chose the smaller bedroom because it had better light for drawing, she explained. After years of being relegated to whatever space others deemed appropriate for her, the simple act of choosing felt revolutionary. The first few weeks were an adjustment. Money was tighter than it had been at my parents' house, even with my reduced expenses for childcare now that Lily could walk to school. But every morning when I saw my daughter eating breakfast at our own kitchen table, humming contentedly as she sketched in her notebook, I knew we had made the right choice. My business began to flourish in ways it never had before. Without the constant stress of navigating family dynamics, I had more mental energy to devote to my work. I landed 3 major contracts within the first month, including a delayed callback from the presentation I had walked out of to rescue Lily. The client had been so impressed by my willingness to prioritize my child that they wanted to work with someone who had such clear values. Lily blossomed in our new environment. Her teacher noted the positive change immediately. She was participating more in class. Her artwork had regained its vibrancy, and she seemed genuinely happy again. She made new friends in our neighborhood, including a girl her age who lived 3 houses down and shared her passion for art. 3 weeks after we moved out, Daniel called me. His renovation had hit another snag, something about structural problems that would require them to stay at my parents' house for at least another 2 months. But there was tension in his voice that hadn't been there before. Jessica is getting frustrated with mom's constant involvement, he admitted. And Emma's sleep schedule is all messed up from the chaos. I listened without offering advice or sympathy. This was the natural consequence of decisions he had made. Maybe we could get together for coffee, he suggested. Talk through some things. Maybe, I said noncommittally. I wasn't ready for that conversation yet, if I ever would be. My mother called twice, both times when she knew I would be working and have to let it go to voicemail. Her messages were masterclasses in emotional manipulation, how hurt she was, how she couldn't understand why I was being so stubborn, how Lily needed her grandparents. I didn't call back. It was Aunt Carol who gave me the real picture of what was happening. She had continued to visit my parents regularly, and what she observed wasn't pretty. Your mother is realizing that she took on more than she bargained for, Carol told me during a phone call. Having Daniel's family there full time isn't the blessing she thought it would be. Jessica treats the house like a hotel, and Emma is a typical baby, messy, loud, and demanding. Your mother keeps mentioning how much easier things were when it was just you and Lily there. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of being told we were burdens, my parents were discovering the difference between adults who contributed to a household and adults who expected to be served. She asks about you and Lily constantly, Carol continued. Whether you're doing okay financially, if Lily is adjusting well to school. I think she expected you to come crawling back by now. And when we didn't? She's getting bitter, Carol admitted sadly. She's convinced herself that you're being vindictive and keeping Lily away out of spite. That stung because it was so far from the truth. I wasn't keeping Lily away from her grandparents. I was protecting her from a dynamic that had been harmful to her self-worth. If my parents wanted a relationship with their granddaughter, they knew how to reach us. By December, we had settled into comfortable routines. Lily's art was displayed prominently throughout our home, not hidden away or treated as clutter, but celebrated as expressions of her creativity and talent. She had entered several local competitions and won two, achievements I documented proudly on social media. My parents had never liked or commented on any of my posts about Lily's accomplishments, but I noticed my father had viewed every story I posted about our new life. The digital equivalent of driving by an ex's house, perhaps. Christmas was approaching, and I knew it would be our first real test. Lily hadn't mentioned missing her grandparents, but I knew she had to be thinking about the holidays. What do you want to do for Christmas? I asked her one evening as we decorated our small tree, the first one we had ever picked out together. Can we make cookies like we used to with Grandma? She asked. And can we invite Rachel? She doesn't have family nearby. My heart swelled. Even after everything, Lily's first instinct was kindness and inclusion. I had worried about the impact of our family's dysfunction on her capacity for trust and love, but she continued to amaze me with her resilience. Of course, we can do both of those things, I assured her. Any other ideas? Maybe we could volunteer somewhere, she suggested shyly. I've been thinking about how lucky we are to have our own house, and maybe we could help people who don't have that. We spent Christmas Eve at a local shelter, serving dinner and helping with a children's craft activity. Lily had brought extra art supplies to share, and I watched her patiently help younger children with their projects. Whatever damage my family's favoritism might have done, it hadn't touched her fundamental compassion. On Christmas morning, as we opened presents by our own tree in our own living room, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Merry Christmas. We miss you both. I showed the message to Lily, who read it thoughtfully. Do you miss them? She asked. I miss who I hoped they could be, I answered honestly. Do you? She considered this carefully, as she always did with important questions. I miss the idea of having grandparents who loved me as much as they love Emma. But I don't miss feeling like I wasn't good enough. Her emotional intelligence at 13 was remarkable, and it reinforced my conviction that removing her from that toxic dynamic had been the right choice. Maybe someday they'll realize what they lost and want to make things right, I suggested gently. But until then, we're building our own family traditions. She smiled and nodded, then returned to examining her new art supplies with the enthusiasm that had been missing for so long when we lived with my parents. It's been a year since we left my parents' house, and I can honestly say it was the best decision I've ever made for both of us. Lily is thriving in ways I hadn't dared hope for. Her art teacher recommended her for an advanced program at a local community college, where she takes weekend classes with other talented young artists. She's confident, outspoken about her needs and boundaries, and has a strong sense of her own worth. My business has grown beyond my wildest expectations. Word of mouth from satisfied clients has led to a steady stream of high quality projects, and I recently hired a part time assistant to help manage the workload. We're not wealthy, but we're comfortable and secure in a way we never were when we depended on others. Daniel and Jessica finally moved back to their own house 4 months after we left. According to Aunt Carol, the experience strained their marriage and their relationship with my parents. Jessica felt judged and controlled, while Daniel discovered that being the favorite child came with expectations he wasn't prepared to meet. My parents have reached out several times through various family members, usually around holidays or Lily's birthday. The message is always the same. They want to reconcile, but they still don't understand what they did wrong. They've never apologized for moving Lily to the basement or acknowledged that their favoritism was harmful. Until they can do that, there's no foundation for rebuilding a relationship. Lily and I have created our own traditions and built our own support network. Rachel has become like a sister to me, and her family has essentially adopted us. Lily calls her kids her honorary cousins, and they treat her with the love and respect she deserves. Sometimes people ask if I regret leaving, if I wish I had tried harder to make things work with my family. The answer is always no. I learned that being related by blood doesn't give anyone the right to treat you poorly, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is remove yourself from a harmful situation. Breaking free from my family's dysfunction was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most necessary. My daughter deserves to grow up knowing her worth, surrounded by people who celebrate her achievements and support her dreams. She deserves to live in a home where she's not competing for scraps of affection or walking on eggshells to avoid disapproval. We both deserve better than what we were settling for, and I'm proud that I finally found the courage to claim it. Most importantly, Lily has learned that she never has to accept less than she deserves from anyone. That lesson alone was worth every moment of uncertainty and every bridge we had to burn to get here. We are free, we are happy, and we are home. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm when the unexpected happened. I was grocery shopping on a Saturday afternoon when I turned a corner and nearly collided with a shopping cart. Behind it stood my mother, looking older and more frail than I remembered. For a moment, we both froze. Then her eyes filled with tears. "Sarah," she whispered, as if she couldn't quite believe I was real. "Mom." I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was racing. We stood there awkwardly in the cereal aisle while other shoppers navigated around us. She looked me up and down, taking in my appearance. I had lost weight, was wearing new clothes that actually fit properly, and probably looked more confident than she remembered. "You look good," she said finally, and there was something like surprise in her voice. "Thank you. How are you?" "Oh, getting by." She gestured vaguely. "Your father's arthritis has been acting up, and Daniel." She trailed off. "And Daniel what?" She looked uncomfortable. "He and Jessica are having some troubles. She moved out last month and took Emma with her." I felt a pang of sympathy for my brother, despite everything. "I'm sorry to hear that." Jessica said she felt suffocated living so close to us, my mother continued, her voice taking on a familiar bitter edge. "After everything we did for them." I recognized the pattern, the inability to see how their behavior might have contributed to the problem. Some things never changed. "How is Lily?" she asked abruptly. and for the first time, her voice cracked with genuine emotion. She's wonderful. Growing up fast, excelling in school, still passionate about her art. I miss her, my mother admitted quietly. I miss both of you. The words hung between us. Part of me wanted to soften, to suggest we try again. But I had learned to listen to my instincts, and they were telling me to be cautious. We miss parts of our old life too, I said carefully. But we're happy now, Mom. Really happy. She nodded, tears spilling over. I know I made mistakes, she said, and my heart leaped with hope. I should have handled the living situation better. I waited, hoping she would say more, that she would acknowledge the deeper issues, the favoritism, the way Lily had been made to feel less than. But she didn't. Maybe we could have coffee sometime, she suggested tentatively. Just to talk. I hesitated. Maybe. Let me think about it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small wrapped package. This is for Lily. I bought it months ago for her birthday, but didn't know how to get it to her. I took the package, noting it was wrapped in paper covered with baby animals, more appropriate for a toddler than a teenage girl. Even in her attempt at reconciliation, she still didn't really see Lily for who she was. I'll give it to her, I promised. We parted ways after exchanging phone numbers, neither of us committing to anything concrete. As I finished my shopping, my mind was spinning with conflicting emotions. That evening, I sat Lily down and told her about the encounter. She listened thoughtfully, turning the wrapped gift over in her hands without opening it. What do you think she wanted? Lily asked. I think she's lonely, I said honestly. Daniel's family isn't there anymore, and she's realizing what she lost. Do you want to see her again? I considered the question carefully. Part of me does. But I'm worried about what it might mean for us, for the peace we've built. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised me. Maybe we could try. But with rules this time. What kind of rules? Like, we meet in public places. And if anyone starts making me feel bad about myself, we leave. And they have to apologize for what they did before we consider letting them back into our lives properly. I marveled at my daughter's wisdom. At 15, she had developed better boundaries than most adults. Those are excellent rules, I agreed. But we don't have to do this if you don't want to. There's no obligation to forgive people just because they're family. I know, she said, but I'm curious. I want to see if they've really changed, or if they just miss having us around to make their lives easier. I called my mother the following week and agreed to meet for coffee at a neutral location downtown. I didn't tell her Lily would be coming. I wanted to see how she reacted when my daughter walked in beside me. My mother's face lit up when she saw Lily, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the grandmother who used to read bedtime stories and help with art projects. My goodness, look how grown up you are, she exclaimed, standing to embrace Lily. Lily accepted the hug but remained somewhat reserved. Hi, Grandma. We settled at a small table, and my mother immediately began asking questions about Lily's life, school, friends, art projects. She seemed genuinely interested in the answers, which was encouraging. I brought those photos I promised, my mother said, pulling out her phone. Emma's first steps, her first words. She scrolled through dozens of photos of Emma, narrating each one as if we were desperate to catch up on every moment of my niece's life. I watched Lily's expression carefully and saw the exact moment she shut down when my mother showed us a video of Emma's second birthday party, a lavish affair we had not been invited to. That looks like it was a nice party, I said carefully. Oh, it was wonderful. Emma was the princess for the day, weren't you, sweetheart? She cooed at the phone screen. The irony was lost on her completely. She was doing it again, centering Emma while barely acknowledging Lily's presence. Lily had her art featured in a gallery show last month, I mentioned deliberately. Oh, that's nice, my mother said distractedly, still scrolling through Emma photos. Emma is showing such artistic talent too. Look at this drawing she made. I felt Lily stiffen beside me. The scribbles of a 2-year-old were being compared to my 15-year-old daughter's sophisticated artwork. Actually, Mom, we should probably head home, I said, standing up. Lily has homework to finish. Already? But we just sat down, my mother protested. It was good to see you, I said diplomatically. As we walked to the car, Lily was quiet. Finally, she said, she hasn't changed at all, has she? No, I admitted sadly. She hasn't. She spent 45 minutes showing us pictures of Emma and asked me about my art for maybe 30 seconds. I put my arm around my daughter. I'm proud of you for giving her a chance. But you're right, she's still the same person who made you feel invisible. I called my mother that evening to be honest about what had happened. Lily noticed that you spent most of our time together talking about Emma. I began gently. It made her feel like you still don't value her as much as her cousin. That's not true, my mother protested. I was just excited to share Emma's milestones. I understand that. But Lily has milestones too, important ones. She's a teenager now with real accomplishments and interests. When you compare her artwork to a toddler's scribbles, it sends a message. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, I don't know what you want me to say, Sarah. I can't help being excited about Emma's development. I'm not asking you to be less excited about Emma. I'm asking you to be equally excited about Lily. I am, she insisted, but there was no conviction in her voice. If that were true, you would have asked about her gallery show with the same enthusiasm you showed for Emma's birthday party. You would have pictures of Lily's artwork on your phone alongside Emma's photos. Another long silence. Maybe this was a mistake, she said finally. Maybe too much has happened for us to go back. We were never trying to go back, I corrected her. We were hoping you could move forward. But that would require acknowledging what went wrong and making real changes. I did my best with the situation I was given, she said defensively. And there it was, the inability to take responsibility, to see how her choices had affected her granddaughter. I know you did what you thought was right, I said sadly. But your best wasn't enough to protect Lily from feeling unloved and unwanted in your home. She hung up without saying goodbye. Lily is now 18 and heading to art school in the fall. She received a full scholarship based on her portfolio, a collection of pieces that chronicle her journey from childhood through adolescence, including several powerful works that deal with themes of family, belonging, and self-worth. The gallery opening for her senior exhibition was one of the proudest moments of my life. The space was packed with friends, teachers, and community members who had watched her grow into the confident young woman she had become. I noticed my parents in the crowd about halfway through the evening. They stood quietly in the back, viewing Lily's artwork with what appeared to be genuine amazement. They had come without calling, without asking permission, simply to witness their granddaughter's achievement. Lily noticed them too, but she didn't rush over or dramatically confront them. She simply continued graciously accepting congratulations from her supporters and explaining her artistic choices to interested viewers. Near the end of the evening, my mother approached us. She looked nervous, clutching a small card in her hands. Lily, she said softly, could I have a word with you? My daughter glanced at me, and I nodded that the choice was hers. Sure, Lily said, stepping slightly away from the crowd. I watched from a distance as my mother spoke earnestly to my daughter, gesturing toward the artwork on the walls. Lily listened politely, her expression neutral. After a few minutes, my mother handed her the card and walked away, tears streaming down her face. What did she say? I asked when Lily returned to my side. She apologized, Lily said simply. Really apologized. She said she realized she had failed as a grandmother and that she was sorry for making me feel less important than Emma. I felt a flicker of hope. How do you feel about that? Lily was quiet for a moment, looking around at the room full of people celebrating her achievements. I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, she said finally, with people who have always seen my worth. She opened the card my mother had given her. It contained a check for a substantial amount of money, enough to cover her first year of art supplies at college. She wrote that she knows money can't fix what happened, but she wants to support my education, Lily said, reading from the card. She says she's proud of who I've become. Are you going to accept it? I think so, Lily said after consideration. Not because I forgive everything, but because it feels like she finally sees me for who I really am. As I write this final chapter, Lily is thriving in her second year of art school. She maintains minimal but cordial contact with my parents, a birthday card, a Christmas text, occasional updates about her academic achievements. It's not the close relationship I once hoped she would have with her grandparents, but it's honest and boundaried. My parents have grown older and perhaps wiser. My father's health issues have given him perspective on what truly matters. My mother has been attending therapy to work through her patterns of favoritism and control. They're not the grandparents I wish Lily had grown up with, but they're trying to be better people now. Daniel and Jessica eventually divorced. Emma splits her time between them, and both have remarried. The fairy tale life my parents had envisioned for their golden child turned out to be more complicated than anyone expected. As for me, I've learned that breaking free from toxic family dynamics isn't a one time event. It's an ongoing process of choosing health over harmony, growth over comfort. It means teaching my daughter that love shouldn't require her to diminish herself, that relationships should enhance her life rather than drain it. Sometimes people ask if I regret the years of estrangement, if I wish I had handled things differently. My answer is always the same. I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret protecting my daughter's well being and self worth. The greatest gift I gave Lily wasn't a stable home or financial security. It was the knowledge that she never has to accept less than she deserves from anyone, even family. She learned that boundaries aren't walls meant to keep people out, they're bridges that allow healthy relationships to flourish. Breaking free wasn't just about leaving my parents' house. It was about breaking free from generational patterns of dysfunction, from the belief that family loyalty requires self sacrifice, from the idea that we must accept whatever love is offered even when it comes with conditions that harm us. Today, Lily is creating art that moves people, building relationships based on mutual respect, and charting her own course in the world with confidence and self awareness. She knows her worth not because someone finally told her she was valuable, but because she learned to value herself. And that, more than any apology or reconciliation, is the true happy ending to our story. The elegant cream envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, addressed in calligraphy that I recognized immediately as Lily's work. Inside was a wedding invitation, not for Lily, who was still focused on her art career, but for Daniel. He was remarrying, and surprisingly, we had been invited. I studied the invitation carefully, noting that it was addressed to both Lily and me, not just a general family invitation. This felt significant, given our history. What do you think? I asked Lily when she came home from her job at a prestigious art gallery in the city. At 23, she had grown into a poised, confident woman whose artwork was beginning to gain national recognition. She examined the invitation thoughtfully. I'm surprised he invited us. We haven't spoken in years. Maybe he's trying to heal family wounds, I suggested. People do grow and change. Or maybe his fiancée insisted on inviting all family members, Lily said with a wry smile. She had developed a healthy skepticism about family motivations, but without the bitterness I had feared might take root. We decided to attend, both curious about how the family dynamics had evolved and wanting to support Daniel if his invitation was genuine. The wedding was held at an elegant vineyard an hour outside the city. As we walked toward the ceremony site, I felt the familiar tightness in my chest that family gatherings used to bring. But this time was different. I wasn't the desperate, newly divorced woman seeking shelter and approval. I was successful in my own right, with a thriving business and a daughter I was incredibly proud of. My parents were already seated in the front row, looking older but dignified. My father's arthritis had progressed, and he walked with a cane now. My mother had silver hair that she wore in an elegant chignon, and she looked more at peace than I remembered. They noticed us immediately, and I saw a complex mix of emotions cross their faces: surprise, pleasure, and something that might have been regret. Sarah, Lily, my father said as we approached. I'm so glad you came. The greeting was warmer than our last interactions, and I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. We wouldn't have missed it, I replied diplomatically. Emma, now 7 years old, came running over in her flower girl dress. She was a beautiful child with Daniel's dark hair and Jessica's features, but what struck me was how she interacted with the adults around her. She was polite but not overly deferential, confident but not spoiled. Someone had clearly learned from past mistakes in raising her. Are you Lily? Emma asked my daughter directly. Daddy said you're really good at art. I am, Lily confirmed with a smile. Are you interested in art too? I like to draw, Emma said shyly. but I'm not very good yet. Everyone starts somewhere, Lily said kindly. The important thing is to keep practicing and have fun with it. I watched this interaction with fascination. Here was the child who had been the center of so much family drama, but she was clearly being raised with different values than those that had shaped our earlier conflicts. Daniel appeared, looking handsome and genuinely happy in his wedding attire. His bride to be, a woman named Catherine, whom I had never met, was beside him. She was lovely in an understated way, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Daniel appeared, looking handsome and genuinely happy in his wedding attire. His bride to be, a woman named Catherine, whom I had never met, was beside him. She was lovely in an understated way, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Sarah, Lily, Daniel said, and there was genuine emotion in his voice. Thank you so much for coming. Catherine, these are my sister and niece I've told you about. Catherine stepped forward immediately. I've heard wonderful things about both of you. Daniel speaks of you often, Sarah, and Lily, I've seen photos of your artwork online. You're incredibly talented. This was unexpected. Daniel talked about us, and Catherine had taken the time to research Lily's work? Thank you, Lily said graciously. Congratulations on your wedding. You look beautiful. As we took our seats, I found myself reassessing everything I thought I knew about the current family dynamics. The ceremony was lovely, heartfelt vows that spoke of learning from past mistakes and building a better future together. When Daniel spoke about the importance of family and second chances, he looked directly at us. At the reception, we found ourselves seated at a table with some of Daniel's friends from work, people who knew nothing of our family history and treated us with the same warmth they showed everyone else. It was refreshing to be seen simply as Daniel's sister and talented niece, without the weight of past grievances. Catherine made a point of spending time with each guest, but she lingered especially long at our table. I hope you don't mind me saying this, she said to me quietly, but Daniel has shared some of your family's history with me. I wanted you to know that things are different now. Emma is being raised to understand that love isn't a competition, that there's enough for everyone. I felt tears prick my eyes at her words. That means more than you know, I managed. Daniel has been working on himself, Catherine continued. Therapy, mainly, to understand some of his patterns and behaviors. The divorce from Jessica was a wake-up call for him about what really matters. During the father-daughter dance, I watched as Daniel danced first with Emma, but then asked my father to share a dance with Lily. It was a small gesture, but symbolic, an acknowledgement that Lily was part of this family too, deserving of the same attention and inclusion. My father, despite his arthritis, managed a slow dance with Lily, and I saw them talking intently during the song. When it ended, Lily had tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. What did Grandpa say to you? I asked her later. What did Grandpa say to you? I asked her later. He apologized, she said simply. Really apologize. He said he'd been a fool to let years go by without trying to make things right, and that watching you raise me on your own made him realize what a strong mother you are. The evening continued with more surprises. My mother approached me during dinner, looking nervous but determined. Could we talk privately for a moment? She asked. We stepped outside onto a quiet terrace overlooking the vineyard. The sun was setting, casting everything in golden light. I need to say something I should have said years ago, my mother began. I was wrong. Not just about the living arrangements or the way we handled things when you lived with us. I was wrong about the fundamental way I treated you and Lily. I waited, hardly daring to breathe. I favored Daniel his whole life, she continued, her voice shaking slightly. I told myself it was because he needed more help, more support. But the truth is, you were so competent, so responsible that I took you for granted. And when Lily came along, I did the same thing to her. She paused, wiping away tears. That child spent 3 years in our house, and instead of treasuring that time with her, I made her feel like she wasn't enough, like she wasn't as important as Emma. And she was just a baby then, Sarah. She needed unconditional love, and I gave her conditions instead. Mom, I started, but she held up her hand. Let me finish, please. I've been going to therapy too, trying to understand why I created such an unhealthy dynamic in our family. The therapist helped me see that I was repeating patterns from my own childhood. My parents favored my brother too, but that's no excuse for what I did to you and Lily. She looked out over the vineyard, gathering her thoughts. When you left that day, I was so angry. I thought you were being dramatic, ungrateful. It took me months to realize that you were being a good mother, protecting your daughter from harm, even when that harm came from her own family. I never wanted to hurt you, I said quietly. I just couldn't watch Lily lose herself trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I know that now, my mother replied, and I want you to know that losing you and Lily was the biggest regret of my life. Not because I missed having you around to help, but because I missed watching her grow up. I missed being the grandmother she deserved. We stood in silence for a moment, both crying now. Is there any chance, she asked hesitantly, that we could try again? Not go back to how things were, but build something new, something better. I looked through the glass doors at the reception, where Lily was laughing with Emma and some of the other young people at the wedding. My daughter had grown into someone who knew her worth, who could navigate complex relationships with grace and boundaries. I think we could try, I said carefully. But it would have to be different this time, real different, not just good intentions. I understand, my mother said. I'm willing to work for it, Sarah, for both of you. The process of rebuilding our family relationships was slow and deliberate. My parents started by attending therapy together to work on their communication patterns and unconscious biases. They also began family therapy sessions with me, with Lily joining when she felt comfortable doing so. It wasn't easy. Old patterns die hard, and there were several sessions where we had to confront painful truths about how the favoritism had affected not just me and Lily, but Daniel as well. He had carried the burden of being the golden child, never learning to handle criticism or failure because he'd been shielded from consequences his whole life. I realize now that you were actually the stronger one, Daniel told me during one particularly emotional session. You had to develop resilience and independence because no one was going to swoop in and save you. I never learned those skills until my divorce forced me to. The therapist helped us establish new boundaries and communication protocols. Family gatherings would be inclusive, with equal attention paid to everyone's achievements. Gift giving would be thoughtful and equitable. Most importantly, Emma would be raised with an understanding that love is abundant, not scarce. Lily was cautious, but willing to engage in this process. She had conditions, any sign of the old patterns returning, and she would step back again. My parents, to their credit, accepted these boundaries without argument. The first real test came at Lily's 24th birthday. My parents had asked if they could host a dinner in her honor, and Lily had agreed, though she was nervous about it. They had clearly put thought into every detail. The decorations reflected Lily's artistic interests, elegant black and white photos of her artwork displayed around the dining room, flowers and colors that complemented her latest painting series. The guest list was people who mattered to Lily, her close friends, her mentor from art school, Rachel, and her family. My mother had prepared all of Lily's favorite foods, not just what was easiest or what she thought Lily should like. She had even tracked down the specific brand of chocolate cake that Lily had loved as a child, but that we hadn't had in years. During dinner, my father stood to make a toast. His hands shook slightly, whether from emotion or his arthritis, I couldn't tell. 24 years ago, he began. Our family was blessed with a granddaughter who brought light and creativity into our lives. I'm ashamed to say that for too many years, I didn't appreciate that light the way I should have. He looked directly at Lily. You are talented, intelligent, kind, and strong. You've grown into an extraordinary woman, despite some of the adults in your life failing to give you the support you deserved. I'm proud to be your grandfather, and I hope I can spend the rest of my years being the grandfather you should have had from the beginning. There wasn't a dry eye at the table. Lily stood and hugged both of her grandparents, and I saw her whisper something to them that made them both cry. Later, as we cleaned up, I asked her what she had said. I told them I forgave them, she said simply. Not because they deserved it, but because I didn't want to carry that anger anymore. And I told them I was grateful they were trying to do better now. Lily's first solo exhibition was opening at a prestigious gallery in New York City. The collection, titled Generations, explored themes of family, belonging, and the ways trauma and healing pass through family lines. Some of the pieces were difficult to look at, raw depictions of a child's confusion and pain. Others were luminous with hope and growth. The entire family came to the opening. My parents, Daniel and Catherine, even Emma, now 9 and developing her own artistic interests under Lily's patient guidance. We stood together in front of one of Lily's most powerful pieces, a triptych showing the same house from 3 perspectives: confusion, pain, and finally, understanding. She's remarkable, whispered a woman standing near us, not realizing we were family. The emotional depth in these pieces, she's channeled something profound about the human experience of family dysfunction and healing. My mother overheard and stepped closer to the woman. She's our granddaughter, she said with unmistakable pride. We're so proud of her. The woman looked impressed. You must have been wonderful influences on her artistic development. I held my breath, waiting for my mother's response. The old version of her might have taken credit, or deflected, or somehow made it about herself. Instead, she shook her head gently. Actually, her mother deserves the credit for nurturing her talent and protecting her spirit when she needed it most. We're just grateful to be part of her life now. I felt tears spring to my eyes. This was growth, real, genuine growth. The evening was a tremendous success. Several pieces sold, and Lily was approached by collectors and critics who were impressed by the maturity and emotional honesty of her work. She handled it all with grace, making sure to introduce family members to her professional contacts and sharing credit for her success with those who had supported her. Near the end of the evening, a prominent art critic approached me. You must be Lily's mother, he said. I wanted to tell you, in 30 years of covering emerging artists, I've rarely seen someone with such a clear sense of their own worth and artistic vision. Whatever you did to raise her, you did it right. I looked across the room at my daughter, who was deep in conversation with a potential mentor about a residency opportunity in Italy. She was confident without being arrogant, talented without being pretentious, kind without being naive. I just tried to make sure she knew she was valued, I said simply. The rest was all her. Lily is 34 now, married to a wonderful man named James who shares her passion for social justice and the arts. They have 2 children, Marcus, age 6, and Sophia, age 4. Watching Lily parent is like watching a masterclass in unconditional love and healthy boundaries. She has become internationally recognized for her artwork, with pieces in major museums and private collections around the world. More importantly, she uses her platform to advocate for children in difficult family situations, partnering with organizations that help families heal from dysfunction and trauma. My parents, now in their early 80s, are devoted grandparents to Marcus and Sophia, but in a completely different way than they were with Emma initially. They ask before offering advice, respect Lily and James's parenting decisions, and treat both children with equal attention and affection. I've watched my father spend hours on the floor playing with toy cars with Marcus, and my mother patiently helps Sophia with her first attempts at watercolor painting. They've learned to be present without being overwhelming, supportive without being controlling. Daniel and Catherine have had 2 more children, and our extended family gatherings are now joyful occasions filled with laughter and genuine affection. Emma, now 17, has grown into a thoughtful teenager who volunteers at a local art center, teaching younger children. She often credits Lily with inspiring her to use her talents to help others. Cousin Lily showed me that being good at something means using it to make the world better, she told us at last year's Christmas dinner. The most unexpected development has been my relationship with Jessica. After years of co parenting with Daniel, she reached out to me to apologize for her role in the family dysfunction. She had been going through her own healing process and wanted to make amends. I was so focused on securing my place in the family hierarchy that I forgot basic human decency, she told me during our first coffee meeting in over a decade. I treated you and Lily terribly, and I'm sorry. We'll never be close friends, but we've developed a cordial relationship based on mutual respect and shared concern for Emma's well being. It's another example of how people can grow and change when they're willing to do the work. As I write this final chapter, I'm sitting in the sunroom of the house Lily and James bought last year, a beautiful colonial with enough space for their growing family and a separate studio where Lily creates her art. Marcus and Sophia are napping upstairs, and Lily is in her studio working on her next exhibition. My business continues to thrive, and I've recently taken on a business partner, Rachel, who has been my closest friend and support system through all these years. We're expanding into art therapy programs, combining my business skills with her background in psychology to help other families navigate difficult dynamics. This morning, I received a text from my mother with a photo of Sophia's latest artwork, a crayon drawing of our whole family holding hands under a rainbow. She insisted on including everyone, my mother wrote, even Aunt Jessica and her new husband. This little one has such a big heart. The contrast with how she used to share Emma's artwork as evidence of superior genetics and parenting couldn't be starker. Now she shares Sophia's creations with pure joy in her granddaughter's expression, not as competition or comparison. I think about the woman I was 15 years ago, desperate for approval, walking on eggshells, watching my daughter shrink to fit into spaces that were too small for her spirit. I couldn't have imagined then that we would end up here, not just surviving, but thriving with a family that has learned to love without conditions. The journey hasn't been easy. There have been setbacks, difficult conversations, moments when I questioned whether it was worth the effort to rebuild these relationships. But seeing my grandchildren grow up in a family where they know they are valued for who they are, not what they can provide or how they compare to others, makes every struggle worthwhile. Lily emerges from her studio, paint stained apron still around her waist, and settles beside me with a cup of tea. Working on anything interesting? I ask. A new series about intergenerational healing, she says with a smile. I keep coming back to the theme of how family patterns can change if people are brave enough to do the work. Think there's a market for that theme? I tease gently. I think there are a lot of families out there who need to see that change is possible, she says seriously. That you don't have to accept dysfunction just because it's familiar. That children deserve better, and adults can learn to give it to them. We sit in comfortable silence, watching the sun set through the tall windows. In a few hours, James will come home from his job at a nonprofit, and we'll have dinner together. The kind of multi-generational meal I used to dream about but thought was impossible for our family. Marcus will tell us about his day at school, and Sophia will show us whatever artistic creation she's been working on. My parents will call to say goodnight to their great grandchildren, and we'll make plans for the weekend visit they've been looking forward to. It's ordinary and extraordinary all at once, the simple gift of a family that has learned to love well. You know what I'm proudest of? Lily says suddenly. What's that? That Marcus and Sophia will never doubt their worth. They'll never have to wonder if they're enough or if they have to earn love by being perfect. They'll grow up knowing they're valued just for being themselves. I reach over and squeeze her hand. That was always the goal, breaking the cycle so the next generation could be free. Mission accomplished, she says with a smile that lights up the room. And as the last rays of sunlight stream through the windows, illuminating the family photos that line the walls, pictures that tell the story of our journey from brokenness to healing, I know she's right. We didn't just survive our family's dysfunction. We transformed it. We broke free, and in doing so, we freed everyone who comes after us. The cycle ends here. The healing begins now. And the love, the real, unconditional, abundant love that every child deserves, continues forever. That's not just a happy ending. That's a new beginning. It's more than that. It's built with mutual respect, boundaries, and unconditional love. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were Sarah? Would you have chosen a different path instead of leaving home that night? Have you ever experienced favoritism like this in your own family? Does this story remind you of your own experiences? What are your thoughts on Lily's way of coping with art? What do you turn to in difficult times? Do you think Sarah's mother has truly changed, or is it just old age and loneliness that pushed her to apologize? What's the most challenging aspect of setting family boundaries for you? What lessons did you learn from this story? Which country are you watching from? Tell us in the comments, and we'll mark you on our world map.